Placebo by David Mason. The Doorway by Evelyn E. Smith. Back to Julie by Richard Wilson. A Hitch in Time by Frederick Pohl. Never Meet Again by Algis Budrys. Placebo by David Mason, originally published in Infinity Science Fiction, November 1955. Narrated by Tom Trussell. Each 1955 was worse than the last. The object appeared in the middle of Main Way, about 50 feet from the statue of Vachel Lindsay, at least 100 from anything else. It was much too big and complicated to have been hidden anywhere, and it hadn't any wheels, tracks, wings, or other visible means of movement. Corrigan, looking the object over, decided that it could not have come from any logical place in the world.
Being a secret agent and all, but I really hope that there's an alternate universe out there where I'm just growing old with a bunch of cats.
Hello. Reloading.
Not being prejudiced, he then thought a little about the illogical places, and the places that weren't in the world. Corrigan decided that it must have been another attempt at time travel, and he clucked his tongue sympathetically. Well, someone had to break the news. Corrigan arose from the grass and walked toward the object. There was a young man sitting in the object, on a sort of high saddle. He looked a little wild-eyed, and he seemed to be talking to himself as he pulled and twisted the controls in front of him.
Last player
Corrigan,
standing.
looking up at him, decided that he couldn't be very healthy, and that the stiff grey garments he wore must be extremely uncomfortable. "Greetings, traveller," Corrigan called. "You're speaking English!" the young man exclaimed. "Good! Maybe I can get some help here. What year is this?" 1955 by most systems. The young man turned a little paler. "I just left 1955, he said unhappily. 4 times, in fact. 4 different 1955s, and each one's a bit worse. Now the machine won't work." "Your theory's wrong," Corrigan said calmly. "Hasn't it occurred to you yet that time travel might be impossible?" The young man made a choked sound. He began to climb down from his perch, keeping his eyes fixed suspiciously on Corrigan as he did so. He saw Corrigan as a small brown man, dressed in loose blue trousers, barefooted, and with a puff of white hair that seemed never to have been properly cut. The lawns and grassy roads, the bright and impermanent-looking buildings, and Corrigan himself, all added up to one thing in the young man's mind. "You're wrong," Corrigan said. "I'm not a lunatic, and this isn't an asylum. We don't have them." The young man on the ground now stared at Corrigan in evident horror. "Mind reading?" "More or less," Corrigan said. "It saves time. For instance, you're Darwin Lenner, and you'd like very much to get back to wherever you started from. In fact, you have to, or something unpleasant might happen to you, by your standards." "I'll be absent without permission," Lenner admitted. I wish you wouldn't do that." "Only when absolutely necessary," Corrigan smiled. "I'm a philosopher by trade myself, not a mind reader. Corrigan, and I'll be very glad to help you on your way. but I think it might be a little difficult. We aren't really a very mechanically minded people here. Lena ran his hands through his hair. I've got to get back. Isn't there anybody who knows something about time machines? Corrigan had been thinking swiftly. He had also been carrying on a conversation which Lena could not possibly hear with a man who was several miles away. Burwell, he wants to go home. Fine, he ought to. Why doesn't he? He lost his confidence. He thinks his machine's broken down. That kind, eh? I suppose the thing never really did work very well. Most of them don't. They go travelling around hit or miss with probability under the operator's own mental stream. But this fellow probably comes from a world where an idea like that's illegal. Sounds like it. Corrigan, take him on a guided tour or something, and keep him busy. I'll be over as soon as I can. I'm going to do something for his self-confidence. Here's the story to give him. Corrigan had always enjoyed conducting guided tours, and he was enjoying this one especially well. He had a slightly wicked taste for complicated teasing, and Lena was a perfect object. He had evidently come from one of the more unpleasant probabilities, a world full of complex rules and harshly restrictive. Anything that he saw bothered him. The handsome girls, wearing unstrategically placed flowers and very little else, the flocks of children, as plentiful as pigeons and apparently as free of supervision, the almost total absence of anybody actually performing useful work. All of it contributed to Lena's increasing nervousness. The guided tour went in a wide circle, and Lena and Corrigan wound up sitting in a tavern facing on Mainway. Lena ignored the green drink before him and peered unhappily out the big window toward his machine. Where is that friend of yours?
Of course, I only wish to help a friend.
He'll be here,
Nothing more.
Corrigan assured him. Why hurry? Don't you like it here? Lena's mouth hardened. He looked around him and shook his head. No. He spoke almost apologetically. I'm sorry. Well, look, old fellow, no hard feelings, I hope. But this world of yours is primitive. Degenerate, I'd say. Primitive? No laws, not even morals. Those girls. And of course, you don't have any civilized advantages, not even ground transportation. That man you spoke of has to walk here, and that's something else I don't understand. You say he's another time traveler. Probability traveler, actually, Corrigan corrected. All right, probability. Why does he stay here? Why would a really intelligent man give up civilization? Well, you know how it is. He's gone native, you might say. Life among the Lotus Eaters and all that. Might happen to anybody, even yourself. Lena shuddered. It's all right, though, Corrigan continued. He'll be here any minute, and I'm sure he'll be able to help.
Spike down,
That's all there is to know about these machines. In fact, here he comes now. Burwell entered, and Corrigan could hardly suppress a small chuckle. Burwell had picked up Lena's ideas about what a man of intelligence and authority ought to look like, and had gone to some trouble to look the part. He was wearing a uniform of some sort, spectacles, and an expression of extreme wisdom. I'm sure I can repair what's wrong, Burwell told Lena. Let's go and look at your machine. Arriving, Burwell climbed over the mechanism with an air of bored ability,
Last player standing.
occasionally thumping at
One
something,
enemy remaining.
adjusting something else, or hitting a part with a tool until it rang. He muttered to himself as he worked, allowing the sound of his musings to drift in Lena's direction. Badly twisted impeller. The varish is more or less waffled.
Their sage is a
Let's
coward
see if...
hiding behind walls.
There we are.
Grow a spine already.
Climbed down and solemnly shook hands with Lena. Fine machine you've got there, my boy. It'll take you back to your own place quite easily now. There wasn't a thing wrong except the drift crotch. However, I wouldn't use it again if I were you. There's no real control on these things. A man could end up anywhere. And of course, you'd never find your way back here without control. Well, thanks, Lena said doubtfully. He glanced around. It's a shame there's no way we could regularly communicate between our worlds. There's a lot we could do for this one. I'm sure of that, Burwell said, hastily looking away. But it isn't worth the danger and difficulty of reaching us. For myself, it doesn't matter anymore. He assumed a nobly tragic expression. But you are young. You've got your life ahead of you. Your state and your society need you. I'm glad to help you on your way.
Spike planted.
Lena mounted the machine, and Burwell beamed a thought at Corrigan. I've convinced him that the thing works.
Last
It will
player
not be easy
standing.
to come back. Actually, that machine of his is a real work of art. It doesn't do a damn thing. This boy comes from a place where they have to have a mechanical crutch for everything. His gadgets are pink pill stuff. Something to convince him he can do things he could do anyway. All we have to do now is give him a small mental shove to help him along, and he'll be home in no time. All right now, shove! Corrigan and Burwell shoved. Lena and his machine faded and were gone, leaving only a flattened place on the grass. Brr. Burwell said, "Am I glad that worked? If he'd stayed another week or so, we would have to have our first lunatic of the century." "Or worse," Corrigan said, stirring the grass with his toes. Did you get what he was thinking about when he talked about his world and ours getting into touch and civilizing us? "I got it all right," Burwell said. "The fellow's mind was a swamp, a real primitive, and just like any other primitive, all he needed was a placebo from a witch doctor. Me in my savage regalia. Just let me get this thing with the glass in it off my nose.
Last
and these
player
button things
standing.
opened up a bit, and we can get on with that chess game. I hope the next traveller picks somewhere else to land, though. I've never felt so silly in my life." The end. Subscribe for your daily stories of futures past. And now,
If you're not being
for the
shot
next
at, you're doing
story.
something wrong.
The Doorway by Evelyn E. Smith. Originally published in Fantastic Universe, September 1955. Narrated by Tom Dressel. "It is my theory," Professor Falabella said, helping himself to a cookie, "that no one ever really makes a decision. What really happens is that whenever alternative courses of action are called for, the individuality splits up and continues on two or more divergent planes, very much like the parthenogenesis of an unicellular animal. Delicious cookies these, Mrs. Hughes." "Thank you, Professor," Gloria simpered. "I made them myself." "You must give us the recipe," said one of the ladies, and the others murmured agreement, glad to get their individualities on a plane they could understand. "Since most decisions are hardly as momentous as the individual imagines," Professor Falabella continued, "and since the imagination of the
Spike
average
down,
individual
B.
is very limited, many
One
of these
enemy
different
remaining.
planes, or as they are colloquially known, space-time continuums, may exist in close, even tangential relationship." Gloria rose unobtrusively and took the teapot to the kitchen for a refill. Her husband stood by the sink, moodily drinking whiskey
I'm
out of the
done
bottle,
playing.
so as to avoid having to wash a glass afterward. "Bill, you're not being polite to our guests. Why don't you go out and listen to Professor Falabella?" "I can hear him perfectly well from here," Bill muttered. And indeed, the professor's mellifluous tones pervaded every nook and cranny of the thin-walled house. "Long-winded cultist. What is he a professor of, I'd like to know?" "Professor Falabella is not a cultist," affirmed Gloria angrily. "He's a great philosopher." Bill Hughes said something unprintable. "If I'd married Lucy Allison," he continued unkindly, "she'd never have filled the house with long-haired cultists on my so-called day of rest." Gloria's soft chin trembled, and her blue eyes filled with tears. She was beginning to put on weight, he noticed. "I've been hearing nothing but Lucy Allison, Lucy Allison, Lucy Allison for the past year. You said yourself she looked like a horse." "Horses," he observed, "have sense." He was being brutal, but he couldn't help it and didn't want to. Professor Falabella was only the most long-winded of a long series of mystics Gloria was forever dragging into the house. The trouble
player
with the
standing.
half-educated
One enemy
is that
remaining.
they seek culture in the most peculiar places. "I'll bet she would have let me have peace on Sunday," he said.
I'm twitchy here. Let's
"It just goes to show what happens when you marry a woman solely for her looks." He drained the bottle, then hurled it into the garbage pail with a resounding crash. Gloria's shoulders shook as she filled the kettle. "I wish I decided to be an old maid," she sobbed. A very unlikely possibility, he thought. Even now, shop-worn as she was, Gloria could have fairly wide range of suitors should something happen to him. She
Get
looked
out of my
sexy,
way!
but how deceiving appearances could be. Professor Falabella was still talking as Bill and Gloria emerged from the kitchen. I believe that it is possible for an individual who exists on a limited plane of imagination to transpose from one plane to an adjacent one without difficulty. Great heavens, what was that? Something had whisked past the archway leading to the foyer.
You will not
Don't
kill
pay
my
any
ally!
attention, Gloria smiled
Spike
nervously.
down, B.
The house is haunted. My dear, one of the ladies offered, I know the most marvelous exterminator. The house, Gloria assured her coldly, really is haunted. We've been seeing things ever since we moved in. And she really believed it, Bill thought. Believed that the house was haunted, that is. Of course, he had seen things too. But he was enlightened enough to know that ghosts don't exist, even if you do see them. Professor Falabella cleared his throat. As I was saying, it is possible to send the individual through another, well,
30
dimension,
seconds left.
as some
One
popular
enemy
writers
remaining.
have, to one of his other
It's never
spatial
personal,
existences
Viper.
on the same
Just
temporal
business.
plane. It is merely necessary for him to find
I'll
the
do my
door.
job, you do yours.
Nonsense, Bill interrupted. Wholly unmitigated nonsense. Every
there.
head swiveled to look at him.
Right there.
Gloria restrained tears
Need
with an
backup.
effort. Brute, someone muttered.
Need backup.
But ridicule apparently only stimulated the professor. He beamed. You don't believe me. Your imagination cannot extend to the comprehension of the multifariousness of space. Nonsense,
Need
Bill
backup.
said again, but less confidently. I believe that I have discovered the doorway, Professor Falabella continued, and the way is open. However, most people fear to penetrate the unknown, even though it is to enter another phase of their own existence.
Reloading.
I do admit that the shock of spatial transference, no matter how slight, combined with the concrete awareness of a previous spatial relationship, would be perhaps too much for the keenly sensitive individualism. Bill opened his mouth. I know what you're about to say, young man. You don't have to be a mind reader to know that, Bill assured him.
Spike down
Constance,
A.
with a little slur,
Last player
he
standing.
knew Gloria was ashamed of him. It served her right. He'd been ashamed of her for years. Professor Falabella smiled. His teeth were very sharp and white. Very well, Mr. Hughes. Since you are a skeptic, perhaps you will not object to being the subject of our experiment yourself.
30 seconds
What
left.
kind of an experiment?
One enemy
Bill
remaining.
asked suspiciously.
Spike down A.
Merely to go through the door. Any door can become the doorway if it is transposed
Spike
into the proper
planted.
spatial dimension. That door, for instance. Professor Falabella waved his hand toward the doorway of what Gloria liked to call Bill's study. You mean you just want me to open the door and go into that room? Bill asked incredulously. That's all? That is all. Of course, you go with the awareness that it is the threshold of another plane, and that you will step voluntarily from this existence to an adjacent one. Sure, Bill said. He had just remembered there was a nearly full bottle of Calvert in the bottom drawer of the desk. Sure, anything to oblige. Very well, go to the door, and keep remembering that your own free will you are passing from this plane to the next. Look out, everybody, Bill called raucously as he pulled open the door. I'm coming in on the next plane. No one laughed. He stepped over the threshold, shutting the door firmly behind him. A wonderful excuse to get away from those blasted women. He'd climb out of the window as soon as he'd collected the whiskey and give them a nervous moment thinking he'd really passed into another existence. It would serve
О,
Gloria
захуял.
right.
Каква столксик was mred
For a moment,
Stay
as he crossed, he had a queer sensation.
He's good, let me kiss my
Maybe there was something in what Professor Falabella said.
Weak.
But no, there he was in the study. All that mumbo-jumbo was getting him down, that was all. He was a nervous man, only nobody appreciated the fact.
Fire in the hole!
Taking a cigarette out of the pack in his pocket, he reached for the lighter on his desk. It wasn't there. Time and time again he told Gloria not to touch his things, and with a
Spike
she
planted.
disobeyed him.
Last player
Company
standing.
was coming and she must tidy up. Cooking and cleaning, that was all she was good for. But this was carrying tidiness too far. She'd even removed the ashtrays.
They think they're so
And where did that
secure.
glass block paperweight come from? It had a penguin in a snowstorm, and he'd been happy with it. This was too much. He'd tell Gloria off, stealing a man's penguin. He opened the door into the living room and bumped into Lucy Allison. "Don't you think you've been in there long enough, Bill?" she asked acridly. "I'm sure your guests would appreciate catching a glimpse of you." "But why, hello, Lucy," he said, surprised. "I didn't know Gloria had invited you." "Gloria, Gloria, Gloria," Lucy cut across his sentence. "You've been talking about nothing but that dumb little blonde for months." Because of the people in the room beyond, her voice
Spike
was pitched
down
low,
B.
but her pale eyes glittered unpleasantly behind her spectacles.
Nice spike
"I wish
down.
I'd married her. You'd have made a fine pair." Gently, caressingly, the short hairs on the back of Bill's neck rose. "Come back in here," Lucy said, pulling him back into the living room where a number of people who had been enjoying the domestic fracas suddenly broke into loud and animated chatter. Dr. Hildebrand was telling us all about nuclear fission. "Can't find an ashtray," Bill muttered, seizing on something tangible. "Can't find
One
an ashtray
enemy
in the whole
remaining.
darn place." "We've been over this millions of times, Bill. You know,"
Spike
she
planted.
smiled at the guests, the smile that carefully excluded Bill. "I'm allergic to smoke, but I never can get my husband to remember he isn't to smoke inside the house." "Now take the neutron, for example," Dr. Hildebrand said through a mouthful of pâté. "What is the neutron? It is only... What was that?" The wraith of Gloria crossed the foyer and disappeared. Bill took a step forward, then stood still.
خليها لي خليها لي.
Lucy smiled self-consciously. "That's nothing at all.
Thank you.
The house is merely haunted." Everyone laughed. "Forgot something," Bill muttered, and dashed back into the study. He yanked
to take
open the
these arms
bottom
for a
drawer of the
spin.
desk. Sure enough, there was a bottle of Chenley. Nearly a third. There are some advantages, he thought as he tilted it to his lips, in having a limited imagination. The end. Subscribe for your daily stories of futures past. And now, for the next story. Begins! By Richard Wilson. Originally published in Galaxy Science Fiction, May 1954.
Flash out!
Narrated by Tom Trisser. You
Spike
can't go
planted.
shooting off to that dimension for peanuts. I don't want to give you the impression that peanuts are in short supply here, or that our economy is in the fix of having to import them sidewise. What I'm trying to convey is that if you're one of the rare ones functionally equipped to do the side shuffle, you'll be pretty well
ult's
paid for
ready.
it in any coin. That's what I told Kaz now. And he wasn't after peanuts. "I'll do it,"
One
he
enemy
said,
remaining.
"if you'll make it worth my while." "I'd hardly expect you to do it for nothing," he replied reproachfully. "How much do you want?" I told him the amount shook him up, but only briefly. "Okay," he said grudgingly.
If
"I
you're
suppose
not
I'll have to
doing
give
well,
it to you,
keep trying.
but
We
the
must
stuff
keep
had
up
better be good."
appearances.
"Oh, it is," I assured him. "You don't have to be afraid, because I couldn't possibly skip with the loot. I'll have to travel naked. I can't get there with so much as a sandal on one foot or a filling in a single
سري لي
tooth.
يا الهبيل والهبيل سري
Fortunately,
لي.
my teeth are perfect."
Merci.
Sweat
Thank
poured
you.
off Krasnow's
Live,
flowing
bro,
face
you give
as
me
he
a
worked the
SMG.
combination of his office safe. His fat
I
jowls
give
quivered
you my
unhappily
take, no?
around his cigar while he counted out the bills.
بدي شبيك
10%
برو.
was cash in advance.
وش بيك برو يا
And the
كبرك
rest
يا
went into a
اخو
bank
يا
account
هالتوانسة
in my
شحن
name.
كل خين راه ما يمكنش
I
راه
paid off a
ادالك
batch
الرينة
of bills
راه
and
الرينة
stripped
ادالك
and did
سلاح
my off
ديالك
to Buffalo.
بينها زكم وكنيكم
Honest John Krasnow was a crooked district
God,
attorney who
Larry.
wanted to be governor.
Spike planted.
God,
President.
التوانسة راه
He
ميم
had the machine,
يا اخو
but he
التوانسة
didn't
need to
have
be
the
executed
people.
من ذوك
And
الجزائريين
because he
بوسي
needed
دين
the
الملك.
people, he needed me.
Oh my god.
I had
Such
been to
an
this
example.
other dimension, the one on the farthest branch of the time,
Skill yourself, man.
and I could give him what he wanted. Krasnow found out about it after I was hauled up in front of him on a check-kiting charge. I'd had something of a reputation before I got into difficulties, and in trying to live up to this reputation, I had done some plain and fancy financing. Nothing that 15 to 20 grand wouldn't have.
One enemy remaining.
While I scrounged around, trying to get cash, I kited a few checks. They pyramided me right into the DA's office, where Krasnov was sympathetic. The man of your standing in the scientific world stoops so low.
Last round before the
It
switch.
developed into quite a lecture, and even coming from Krasnov, it made me feel pretty low. So I began explaining.
برو شريت الدكتور
born,
مسكين
where I
دات
went
له
to
رينا
school,
وبدك
and where I'd
يسبلي
taken my sabbaticals,
راه التوان صار
including
يدي
this
كانت
other
في فاكين
dimension.
ريل السطر دير
And
فاكين
Krasnov
اوتيستيك
believed me.
صاحبي
I can't account for it.
عندك
except possibly because he knew
الجزائريين
he was a
شويه
crook,
ولكن
and
التوان
I
صار
knew
فاكين
I
نكست
wasn't.
ليفل هادشي راه ما يمكنش
Exactly. Anyway, he believed me, and we made the deal, and I did the side shuffle, as agreed. The journey to that other dimension is not a
انا
pleasant
love this
one.
skins active
It does disturbing
Drop
things
killers.
to the stomach, and you see everything thin and elongated,
I'm
as if
around
you're
here,
sitting too far to the side in a movie theatre. I got there, however, and waited for the
اه
hiccups
بيكو
to
كامل
subside.
Spike planted.
Hiccupi laterali, I had called them when I considered writing an article for the medical
out of my
journal
way.
after my first trip. With the hiccupi gone, I stole some clothing,
Jumper,
which was one
jumper.
of the riskiest parts of the
Oh
program.
yeah, wait.
and waited
Sorry,
for
jumper.
morning. I didn't
Reyna
have
took
any
my
money,
skin.
of course.
Yes,
I had
that's
to
yeah.
hitchhike into town.
Last player
That's totally what's
standing.
Sorry,
I could have
happened.
stolen myself a better
Sorry,
thing,
jumper. Sorry.
but people aren't clothes conscious in that dimension. They're more interested in what you are and what you can do. The driver of the car that gave me a lift asked, "And what is your field of endeavor?" I told him, I am able to eliminate the long wait in ivory production by accelerating the growth cycle of elephants. He was deeply impressed and tipped me handsomely. I was less impressed with his talent
Switching
for growing
sides.
cobbler's corn, and therefore had to return only a small
breaths,
part of the sum
everyone.
he gave me.
Your hearts are pounding.
The world of this dimension had developed some remarkable parallels to Earth. I mean our Earth, which falls into what I have called designated Timeline 1.1, since it's the Earth with which I am most familiar. Every other world that has a language calls itself Earth 2. I had to visit briefly hundreds of the lateral worlds, hovering over primordial swamps, limitless oceans, insect kingdoms, and radioactive planetoids, before I found the one that was truly parallel.
Crush them.
It existed in timeline 17.08, and it had refrigerators, platinum blondes, automobiles, airplanes, apple pie, tabloids, television, scotch soda. Just about everything we think makes life worthwhile. But it had its little differences, which was only to be expected by the timeline where the biologists would create a new
Phoenix,
world
what's there?
each time
Behind you,
someone
behind you.
changed his mind.
Reload.
Yeah, forward.
Thus, the cobbler's corn man
One enemy
driving what
remaining.
looked to me like a Chevrolet, but which was a Morton in
Flawless.
his world.
You
He
see?
let me off near a downtown restaurant where, thanks to a little exchange of talent talk, I had enough
Y'all
money
better
for
keep
breakfast. It was considered unethical to swap talent talk outside the
اسمعني
limits of
كلها
certain
ايرس
rigidly
كلها ايرس
defined
all
groups,
ايرس.
so I didn't try to out-impress the waitress. Fed, and feeling my stolen
fun,
clothes a
little
bit
days,
better,
okay.
I walked to the recorder's office and spent the rest of the morning looking up old documents. There was nothing there for Krasnow, as I had expected.
Okay. No shove.
But for me, there was a very pretty file clerk. Talking to her, I verified my impression that human instincts and relationships were much the same in this dimension as in my own. Except in the one basic respect that interested Krasnow, of course. The file clerk and I lunched together, and then I spent the afternoon in the library. But I didn't find anything there either. And then I had dinner with her.
Planted.
She said her name was Julie. I told her mine was Heck, for Hector.
One enemy
which it is.
remaining.
She thought it was awfully cute, and we got along fine.
Yeah.
Julie had a delightful apartment and a matching sense of hospitality. The following day, when she went to work, I stayed home and washed the dishes and made the bed and used the telephone.
سيفي
I ran up quite a bill with my long-distance calls,
That's it,
but I
break time.
found out what I needed to know. I impressed a lot of people with my elephant story
Look your
and
enemy in
pretended
the
to be impressed hardly at
helps
all
with
with what they told
accuracy.
me they did. Although often I was, very much. The
اسمع
trouble
شو
with
سموكي
these
وسيم
people
فلاشي
is
سايد
that they no longer know how to lie, if that can be listed as
Gun
trouble.
here.
I don't think it can. Neither did Krasnow, obviously. He'd never have sent me off on my expensive side trip if he had. Of course, Krasnow looked at it objectively. What he wanted from Timeline 17.08 was not for himself.
Still in
It was
sight.
for everybody else.
Enemy
He
spotted.
wanted a formula for the truth gas these people had developed long ago and loosed upon their world to put a stop to wars. They had been in a bad way.
Spike
No
down
worse
B.
than the sort of problem we were up against. Their trans-ocean squabble and power politics seemed to have settled into a pattern of a war or two
سيم
per
انا اعمل لك
generation,
الوول وسيم
just like
تعال
us.
النار خليك تعدي
Hence,
اديني
The man who invented the truth gas became a global
Flash
hero
out! Got the
after a
spike!
certain
Going
amount of
up!
cynicism and skepticism. All the
Spike
doubt
down,
vanished
B.
naturally once the gas got to working. And so did war. You can't do much plotting and scheming if, every time
Last
you open
player
your mouth to tell a
standing.
lie, you stammer, sweat, turn red, and gasp for breath. It's a dead giveaway. Nobody tries it more than once. One or two men had tried to nullify the gas or work out
And the
a
last
local
thing they'll
antidote,
see before they
either
die.
as a pure research
Lucky
project
them.
or through power madness. But because they
Right
had to
there.
state their purposes as soon as they thought of them, they were put away. Neat.
Sorry, go.
Very neat. What I wanted was a formula
عندي
for the
فلاش
truth
يدخل هذيك
gas.
هي المهم
Its
بتاعك
location
Come here,
wasn't
come here,
exactly
come
a
here.
secret in this land of complete candor, but it wasn't writ large on any wall for all to see either. They kept it in the capital, located about where our Omaha is, on file among the vital statistics. I took a super jet down there. I had no trouble posing as a historian entitled to his facts. The gas didn't work on me, you see, because it was adjusted to the physiology of that timeline. There was just enough
Spike
difference
down
between us
A.
for it
I
not to
flash.
make
Got the spike!
Reloading.
We'll write out the formula for you, I was told. But you'll have to sign the usual statement. Of course, I said. Which one is that? The one that says you won't publish it and will destroy your copy when it has served your research purpose without letting anyone else see it. Oh, that's it,
Blinding!
I said. I signed
spotted
freely,
A.
told my elephant
One
story,
enemy remaining.
and departed in an aura of goodwill. The jet got me back that same evening. Julie fixed me up a snack, and we discussed how pretty she was and how nice I was. I had everything Krasnow wanted
Come
now.
on! Get
I
me in the
felt
line of
pretty good
fire.
about it, because there was nobody else who could have done the job for him, and because it wasn't spying, really. Earth 1.1 on the timeline is world enough for Krasnow, I'm sure. Besides, dimensions don't have wars with one another. Too many things can go wrong. Julie was lovely, and I hated to leave the next morning,
Hit
but
them
it was
fast,
my job.
hit them hard.
I told her, I'm afraid I have to leave town for a bit, dear, but I'll be back very soon. Business, you know.
Clearing out!
Being a 17.08 girl, Julie had no reason to doubt me.
Cutting.
Make it very soon. Got close to my ear. So I came back,
Plant the
and
spike.
now Krasnow has what he wants. He's delighted, as he should be. I've made up the gas for him and adjusted the formula so that it will work on people of our
Spike down
timeline.
A.
It's high power stuff, and a little will go a long way. I also made up an antidote for him. This was easy, since I could work on it without feeling any compulsion to tell everybody what I was doing and why. Krasnow plans to release the truth gas just before the state convention. He'll be
You will
nominated, of
not
course,
kill my
and after
ally!
November, he'll be governor.
Last player standing.
Everyone else compelled to tell the truth.
think so.
It should be a situation.
One enemy remaining.
He's a patient man, honest John
Nice.
Krasnow is, and is willing to wait 4 years for the presidency.
We planted.
ما
We
عنديش
planted.
بطاطا وانا ما
With the
عندي
money
زوم، ما
Krasnow
عنديش
gave
بطاطا
me,
بسكت.
I've been living in the style to which I've always
We
wanted to be
planted, bro.
accustomed. He has offered me a place on his staff, and
Big
somewhat
time.
superfluous use of his antidote.
No,
How do I get away
The
until it
reason
was
he
ready?
wasn't magnanimous was that he doesn't want anyone else around who knows his gimmick and might have to tell the truth about it. But I have had enough of this dimension now that Krasnov has what I promised him. He's going to use it tomorrow. And if I know Honest John, and I do, not even the presidency will be big enough for him. So I'm going back to Julie. There are some obvious questions in your mind, I know, such as, why did I get the formula for Krasnov knowing there was no way for him to prosecute me while I was in Julie's dimension? And what made me come back?
Flash out!
In short, what is it for me? Let's call it research. Krasnov is a big-time operator. I've always been, you might
Spike
say,
down
the
A.
peanut end of the game. He had a great deal to teach me, and I'm happy to say, was an apt pupil. You might speculate
Last
on what's
player
in it for
standing.
you, because, if you asked me, anybody who can do the side shuffle would do it before Krasnov becomes president. However, don't go to 17.08 unless you want to swap one Krasnov for another. The fact is, I learned I can do one in Julie's
Free
dimension.
out! My ult's
After
ready.
all, their formula doesn't work on me. But I can assure you that it will work on you. And that elephant story I told on my last visit is, as I've indicated, in the peanut factory. Or, as
One enemy remaining.
is a country,
Indeed, bro.
I'll have the whole world. There's nothing like study under a
Trust
master,
me,
is there?
they'll know what hit them.
I should be back to Julie by midnight, if I start now.
Right there.
Go big.
Does anyone have
The
funds?
end.
Merci.
Subscribe for your daily stories of
Say
futures
please.
past. And now, for the next story. A Hitch in Time
Take
by
'em.
Frederick Pohl. Writing as James McCrae. Originally published in Thrilling Wonders. June 1947. Narrated by
Reloading.
Obviously, the man was dying, and there was no chance that it ever would be discovered. I blessed the carelessness that
Right
had
there.
caused me to set the space-time dial
Spike
off
planted.
when I began this journey to the distant past. I had come to this barbaric era in the proper time, indeed, but millions of miles removed from it in space. It had been only after an annoying search that I had discovered Earth, jetted toward it in my space drive,
Flash out!
and had come down out of the skies to land on this
One
tiny
enemy
desert
remaining.
in the middle of an empty sea. But it was incredible luck that had brought me there, for I had found exactly what I needed. A man who could give me information, clothing, and an identity, and then
Stop dying.
and obliterate the record of my interference
This is your
with the
last
course
one.
of events.
Okay.
I, Thom Ra, walked toward him. Feeble though he was,
Who's by
he
me?
opened his eyes and stared at me. Thank heaven, he
Thank you,
whispered
brother.
in the thick, hideous
Hold
language
it
of
up.
that era. I couldn't have lasted much longer if you hadn't found me. He fell back and smiled
out
at
of my
me with
way.
heartfelt gratitude.
There.
And for a moment I felt wild,
Reloading.
to save his life.
Reloading.
Of course, I dared not interfere.
Fire in the
For that would change the shape of the future, and that meant destruction.
Dusted.
Reloading.
When I blasted off from the island,
روح
a
للصايد
little
نعمل
later,
حاجة.
he was
خلاص.
dead. I was wearing his uniform and his name.
Our carrier's dead.
He gave me
Got the
information
spike
before
down,
he
B.
died, and I had no trouble locating what I wanted. I waited till dark before
You
landing
will
a few
not
hundred
kill my
yards
ally.
from the war dome. Then I hid my space drive suit in a cluster of ancient trees and walked into the building that housed
Flash
the
out!
most murderous weapon of all time.
انا مكفرك.
Sentry challenged me, of course, but I was ready for it. After a quick look at my stolen
One enemy remaining.
Make it
his
four.
ray
Nice.
pistol. Pass, sir, he said, and I walked in, no longer as Thom Ra,
هاي الهي
but
القدام.
identified as Captain San Requa of the
30
Intelligence.
seconds left.
Trevor!
At once, I saw the atom
Hey!
was on the other side of the great
I
chamber,
you
nestled
every
in a
damn
wheeled
time.
cradle, ready to be rolled out to the blast
Take aim,
of point.
Zenfire. Let's not
Hurrying
complicate it.
technicians swarmed about it with the last-minute checks. I walked over,
Ah, come in.
saluted the officer who was supervising, and began to witness events which I had crossed so tremendous a span of years to observe. The atom rocket was a long silvery torpedo, a cluster of tubes at the rear, a snub-nosed
Great
warhead at the front. A panel in the side of it was open, and technicians were setting dials according to the figures read off by a white-haired officer, insignia of a general.
Clearing out.
I listened in awe and reverence, straining to note and remember everything that occurred. To think that I was
Reloading.
actually present at the climactic moment of the legendary War of Annihilation. It was the most thrilling moment of my life. Almost I forgot to curse Master Lys and his duplicity as I watched. Almost,
Last player
but
standing.
not quite. For the thing was too fresh in my mind, and I was aware that I was still in danger.
دي يثبت لي تحط له
I
بالوقت
had begun with a
كثر
routine notice that my preparatory work had been approved and that I was authorized to enter a theme in ortho-history for my final citizenship ratings. The theme, I saw with a sinking heart, was the War of Annihilation. I had hurried to Master Lys, my instructor, sure that there was an error. Master,
chance,
you
mes
give me an
amis.
impossible task, I had said. The theme regulations are that I must make a real and complete contribution to human knowledge. How can I? We have so pitifully few records of the War of Annihilation. All of them have been studied and analyzed and worked over thousands of years.
C'est marrant.
No way for me to add to what has been written already. He cackled at me in his insufferable tri-alpha way. There is a way, he mumbled, keeping a
One
hand
enemy
with his
remaining.
weary old eyes. It took me a moment to realize what he meant. The time belt. And Master
Hold on,
Lys
hold on,
nodded.
Zan.
Well, I argued with him, of course. The time belts
These
were
gun
too
thieves are
dangerous.
okay, but I will also
Not
bring my
one
own.
time traveler in
face.
10 returned from the past, even when their projects were as recent as 100 years ago.
Guys, Vandal, please.
And the farther into the past one ventured, the more certain it
Thank you.
became that return would be impossible. For although the mechanism of the time belts could be
Don't
trusted,
speak mid, you will
and there
die
was no
on.
physical menace that the conductor
come on,
screens
we
or
have
the
to fight,
catenated
we have to
guns could not
Come,
cope with.
you don't have. Yeah.
There was the ever-present danger of fan-shaped time itself. It was the first law of chromistics. Our era is a product of everything that occurred in the past. Should anything in the past have changed, our age would rapidly change.
Blinding.
Now it would continue to exist,
My ult's ready.
but in a parallel branch of time. And there was no
Spike
way
down,
of passing
defender
from
spawn.
one branch to another. And if a traveller into the past should interfere
Amateur.
in the course of events, he would be bound to the new time stream his actions created, and the unlucky traveller would never be able to return. The branches of fan-shaped time could never be retraced. The man who interfered with the space-time matrix, displacing even a comma in the great scroll of time, would be cut off from his origin forever. The danger was too great. I refused to
Flash
accept
out!
the assignment, even though I knew it would mean I would never rise to the status of Tri-Alpha
Out of
citizenship,
charges.
which was otherwise my right.
One enemy remaining.
Then I
30
heard about
seconds left.
Elrond. Lovely,
Well,
adored
boys,
Elrond Ree,
right.
and I could no longer refuse. For Elrond's
Match
mating
point.
indices were posted, and she was a Tri-Alpha herself. Then I
إذا
understood
ربحنا
what
على
had been in
ريمونتادا
Master Lys's
صدمة
mind when he
من
set that impossible task for me.
هاي كالعادة كالعادة.
Does
For
anyone
I
have
knew
fun?
that the gnarled, worm-eaten old wreck had dared to covet my Elrond. Loving me, she could never be his. But with me out of the way,
Don't hold back.
he might have a chance. I accepted the assignment. Master Lys secured a time belt for me was willing enough to help at my end.
Get out of my way!
And I began my perilous journey through time. I came back to my surroundings with a start. Something was wrong. Subconsciously, I had been studying the atom rocket, and now I was jolted out of my reveries as I realized that it did not look as it should have. The Ortho history book Venus had been destroyed in the War of Annihilation by means of a hydrogen chain reaction. The most deadly atom blast.
One enemy remaining.
Atoms of hydrogen, under the influence of gamma particle bombardment, coalesced to form atoms of helium. And all the intelligible power
Attackers
represented
win.
by the odd fraction of mass left over was released in the form of free energy. But the atom rocket before me seemed to be nothing more than a simple nuclear fission affair. Where were the photon exciters, the gamma-ray bombardment equipment? Of course, even a fission bomb could do a good deal of local damage, as shown in the first atom-bombed cities during the Little Wars of the early 20th centuries. But unless our nuclear science...
Okay guys, thank you for watching and see you tomorrow and have a good night. We go to sleep. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Follow me every day, afternoon and in the nights. Goodbye.